Good morning, YouTube. It's 6 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and we are making another attempt at doing pens on the channel. So, before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to everybody that left a comment on my previous video. I took everybody's comments, good, bad, and indifferent, took all of that knowledge from the previous project and put it into today's project. So I do really appreciate all the feedback that I got from my last project, and it was very, very helpful. So got my pen blank kit out, and we're just choosing a blank to start with, and this cool blue color here kind of just stood out, and I'm like, okay, we got 9 more of these to do, so let's see if maybe we can make something really cool out of this one. So learn from the previous one, and yes, I do need to work on my camera work. I'll probably say that a couple of times because you're just getting a zoom in of what my hands look like here. So all we're doing here is just measuring out how big these initial blanks are going to be. So we have the 2 pen cases that we'll have to cover with the pen blank. I'm just cutting down, marking where they're going to be. And yes, this was super stupid and super dangerous. Do not use a miter saw to cut a 1/2 inch block of wood. And then when you do that, do not take the other part that's even smaller and do the same thing, because you're just asking for this thing to hit me in the face or cut off a finger. But we managed to make that work. So now we have the 2 pen blanks, loaded that into the chuck, and this is the first one that we are going to gouge out in the middle so that we can turn it on the lathe initially. So this part goes pretty smooth. Had a lot better experience doing this the second time around. No issues whatsoever. It goes in really nice, easy, and flush. And this is just a different angle of me putting in the second piece here into the woodchuck. That sounds funny, woodchuck. But putting that in there, and then we're going to gouge out this second portion of our pen blank here and start the lathe. It's on about half speed, so here we are trying to gouge out the middle. Bam, goes again. No issues here. Comes out really, really well. So now we have the 2 pen blanks, and now we are ready to glue them up and put the blanks actually together. And shout out to, I forgot who left the comment. You can go back to my previous comment, but letting the glue dry was a big benefit. So a couple of people had said, hey, let the actual blank dry for at least 2 hours before you start turning it. So we actually did that. I let that set up for about 24 hours, set up the spindle, and now we're working on turning this on the lathe itself. So really took our time. The actual turning part of it goes really well. Not a whole lot of issue there. It's just the previous one that I did, it was a lot thicker, and I really took my time with the chisels and just really worked down the material as much as possible. And I did try to taper the ends, and I could have done a little bit better job doing that, but I was afraid that I was going to gouge out so much of this material that it was going to actually just punch through. So I took off a lot more material than I did with the previous project. However, I should have took down a lot more material, and you can kind of tell here by the middle portion of it, working down the material works pretty good, but it's a little thicker than I would like, but maybe we'll get that perfected on the next one. But this part goes relatively easy using the really small carbide tools, and then just trying to gouge out the ends here to make it a nice taper. But I'm like, here I am just finishing it up, just doing some touch-up work, and I got like a death grip on the actual chisel itself because I'm really afraid it's gonna burst through and totally mess up everything. But ended up not making that catastrophic mistake, and was pretty happy how this looks. So I'm like, all right, cool, we got everything sized the way that we wanted, and now we're just gonna go ahead and do a little bit of sanding, going from 120 to 180. Did not spend a lot of time sanding it. Once I got to this part, I was pretty much happy with it, so I wasn't too concerned about polishing it too much. So then we took the super glue and then just put a coat on the top of it. And again, I've seen some other woodworkers do this. I'm probably going to use 15-minute epoxy the next time that I do this. And again, I need to work on the camera work a little bit, but there's a zoom in picture of what my hands look like. So did that for a little bit, let that dry and set up, and then we just took everything off, and now we're ready to do the assembly essentially. But there is a little bit of the wood that, because when you cut it on the miter saw, there's plenty of material still left, so now I'm just trying to make this flush with the actual inside of that brass bearing, just so everything sits nice and flush. So assembly was an issue, but I took what everybody said in the last video and worked on the assembly. Everything fit really well, so there you can see that portion went really well. And yes, I did mess up on the actual pen itself, and I did not insert things the correct way, but I show failure on the channel, so you guys are about to watch me screw this portion of it up, and I did not put that in correctly. And I'm like, okay, I screwed up again, tried to assemble the pen, and then realized I made a mistake. So then I had to take everything apart, figure out how the pieces actually work, reinsert everything, and here I am trying to get everything assembled again. That's going not the way that I envisioned, but mistakes, you gotta learn from your mistakes. And here I am assembling the pen, and the pen actually assembled. So I'm like, okay, cool, everything's going relatively well. I'm trying to straighten everything out, and I'm just like punching everything in. I'm like, okay, cool. And now I'm going to take this part, and it didn't want to go together, so then I had to pull it apart with some needle nose pliers, and I'm on the struggle bus pretty hard here, but I'm just trying to disassemble everything. But I'm like, okay, this isn't going to be the best looking pen, but I can at least save it, because the last project was just a complete failure. But miraculously, I figured out the issue, assembled the pen, and here I am using the clamp technique. That actually works really well in my opinion. So I got the pen assembled initially, and it looks really cool. Granted, it's still too thick in a lot of places, and I didn't do a good taper toward the end of it here. But here I am twisting the pen, trying to get the actual tip of the pen to come out, and you can see it there, but it's still not assembled correctly. So at this point, I'm debating whether or not to just say, hey, we assembled it, and just quit, or just keep going. So I disassembled the pen yet again, realized what I had done, and then like, okay, boom, fixed it. There it is. The tip of the pen comes out, so now I can assemble it appropriately and get everything worked out. So now I figured out what the issue is, and just press everything together, and then abracadabra, it works now. And granted, it is not the most beautiful pen, but I did figure out the problem. And this is my first successful pen, and all I'm going to do is come back, hit it with a little bit of wood wax, not a whole lot. This is going to be my personal pen. I'm not selling it to anybody, but I'm like, bam, there it is. Finished it, still works, and I was really, really happy with it. I'm like, all right, cool, first successful pen. So now we are all done, and I will be doing a lot more projects with pens in the future, so you guys have that to look forward to. And I'll see you guys in the next one, and thanks again to everybody that left a comment. See you in the next one. Peace. Alright, so project is done, and we have somehow figured out our first pen. It comes together. The tip of the pen, if it will focus, comes out, and then you can retract it, and it does right. But it's not the prettiest looking pen, so obviously you can see there the taper for the portions of the pen that probably need to be tapered a little bit better. But our first successful pen, and just a big shout out to everyone that left a comment on that first pen that I did. Yeah, still hopefully I will get better at doing these pens, because I want to just do like maybe a whole month dedicated to pens. And I get it, like they're all like the same or whatever, but I don't give a damn. It's my channel, and these are cool to make. And now that I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, and it writes and it works, it's always cool when something works. That's always like the best part of it. But first pen I ever made that actually writes and works and functions, and you can, write with it. So hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, I'm gonna go make more of these. Peace.